Hi, my name's Ryan Russell. I go by Russ, and my pronouns are he, him, his. Right now, I live in the beautiful Los Angeles, California, but I grew up in Carrollton, Texas, a suburb right outside of Dallas.
Hi, so my name is Kate Austin, and I go by the pronouns she, her, and hers. I currently live in Long Branch, New Jersey, which is right on the beach, but I am originally from a little suburb outside of Cleveland, Ohio.
My name is Aiden Dowling. I am a transgender activist and dad. I grew up in Long Island, New York, and I currently live in Austin, Texas.
I am Devin Gibby. I use pronouns he, him. I am from Burley, Idaho originally, and right now I live in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Cities I've been out and queer in consists mostly just of LA, New York City, Seattle for like a weekend, but that's about it. It's pretty fresh for me.
I lived in Philadelphia for about 5 years with my fiance, and we actually lived in the gayborhood in Philly for a long time. And also I was out and proud in Cleveland, Ohio as well, where I'm from. And lastly, I've been out and proud here in Long Branch, New Jersey.
First, just my hometown, which is on Long Island in Patchogue. There's a conference in Philadelphia that is held each year for trans people, so I've been out and proud in there. There's also another conference in Atlanta, Georgia. Then I have actually been out and proud and lived in Naples, Florida, Eugene, Oregon, and now out and proud here in Austin, Texas.
I have lived most of my adult life in Utah. I did spend a summer living in Seattle for an internship. I didn't come out until 6 years ago. I was not out when I lived in Seattle as much as that would have been a great place for me to be out. It helped me actually to come out, living in a place where it's a lot more accepting.
A huge factor for where my fiance and I decide to live, our safety and comfort comes, first. I want to be able to leave my apartment and hold her hand and not have to worry about who's looking or if I'm safe.
They say home is where the heart is, and my heart can't be in a place that's not open-minded, that's not accepting, that's not loving. So I'm not only giving myself the best choice for that option, but giving hopefully my family one day the best choice.
I've chosen to stay in Salt Lake because I know that there are other people like me here. So it is nice to have that safety, feeling of safety and acceptance.
Being in a queer-friendly, LGBT-friendly city has absolutely 100% defined where I've lived. I remember when I first moved to Florida, I was terrified because I didn't know any other queer people in the area. I knew that I could go to Miami with a fairly short drive, and I knew that there would be queer people there, so it was kind of a leverage of living there.
Call it Small Lake City. Yes, we have a substantial amount of LGBT people, but it's also small enough that you end up knowing a lot of people because a lot of people here grew up in conservative environments, particularly Mormon. You can ask most guys on dating apps what mission they served in.
So living in Long Branch, the queer culture is not as much, but I'm fortunate that it's right next to a very, very gay town, and it is just covered in rainbows and rainbow flags and all that fun stuff. And it's just a really cute, queer beach town with tons of bars and restaurants and things like that are filled with safe spaces for queer people.
Diversity, music, art. So many things that I loved, but never really got to embrace growing up in Texas.
One thing I've definitely noticed about Austin is that they don't really have a big queer scene to begin with. So you grab on to anybody who is queer identified. You're like, oh, you're queer? You're welcome here. The amounts of different identities underneath the queer umbrella all coming together. The types of people, the bodies, the colors, the expressions of their queerness. That's definitely been one of the most unique things.
Thinking about how many big cities there are in this country, they're packed with people, but there's so many more queer kids stuck in these small towns, and being able to have a place where they can go and, feel accepted if they don't feel that at home. But it's such an important thing. And I think that's really what helps shape who we are as individuals in the LGBTQ+ community.
In New York or LA, you are the larger culture, whereas here in Salt Lake, we are definitely the minority. That's, I think, why there is such a strong advocacy activist type of mentality, because we do have to fight for the rights that we have.
I thought pretty much LA and New York were the only cities where people were out and there was some type of queer culture, but in visiting places like Seattle and places like even Austin in Texas being a more inclusive and a more forward-thinking, diverse place, you see that there's queer culture everywhere. So when you find someone and when you connect with someone on that level, you're going to have a lot of the same small town experiences, and you're going to be in that struggle or in that experience together.
I think when you have queer people in a small town or a smaller city, you want to feel connected. So when you hear that someone's queer, you just want to get to know them and you want to see if you vibe with them. Like I know for myself, like I'll go the extra step just to kind of meet up with them or get to know them or follow them on Instagram. So having to put myself out there so I can make those connections because the pool just isn't quite as crowded, it's really allowed me to just meet different people that maybe I wouldn't have really been exposed to if I had such a selection like when I was living in New York. So there's so many amazing parks in Austin, and some of them are like a little bit of a drive. Some of them are really close in town, but I just love how we're still in a city, but there's tons of rivers and swimming holes and tons of hiking to go on. It's really cool to be able to get out and be like, we still live in a city, but I don't hear anything out here. And it's just the river and the trees and my family and other, seeing other families enjoying the same thing. So it's really cool to have that mix.
My friends and I would all just pile in a car, drive downtown, and do whatever we could find. Whether you are going to watch the Mavericks play, going to Nick and Sam's, my favorite steakhouse down there, Kyle Warren Park, you could just sit out and read a book. There's food trucks that come.
We love to escape to Woodstock and like the Phoenicia area in upstate New York. It's super drivable. It's like an hour and a half to 2 hours from us, depending. And they are so inclusive. And like, I didn't think I was going to love it as much as I did the first time that we went. And we've been back literally like 10 times since. And, they have pride flags everywhere. And they just make sure that no matter who enters the town, that you feel like you belong.
My favorite place to visit in the summertime are definitely some of the local reservoirs. There's lots of boating you can do, and there's usually some great campsites nearby. So even like during quarantine this last summer, I was able to be like very socially distant from people while still being out on a boat, having fun with my family. That's why I feel lucky about living in Utah, is it's really easy to do things like that.
And to all the queer kids who are moving out of their cities, maybe you don't want to go to a fast New York or a big old LA, I would say that there are thousands of possibilities. I mean, I went to Tampa and was completely surprised by the culture and by the diversity and by just the welcome feeling that I got there. So go for it. Give it a shot. Move around. See the world. See what you like. Go to places that just make you feel comfortable and good about being you. And if that happens to be a small town, then they got lucky, honestly, because there's probably a little kid in their town who's nervous about being queer and sees someone like you. And it's like, you know what? It's not so bad here.
I think the idea of leaving a big city and moving to a smaller town is super intimidating because big cities do typically tend to be super accepting of the LGBTQ plus community. But I think it's important, to always research where you're going. The community is everywhere and you will find it no matter where you are.
You may have to give up some of your conveniences that you enjoyed in a larger city. I think as long as you are a good friend and are looking for community, you'll find that in red states as well as blue states, and in small towns as well as large towns.
Queer people are everywhere. And now with the ability to communicate with people through social media and all these different outlets, you can build that community. And it's just about gathering and finding a safe place to do that. None of us could have done what we do without the queer people before us. So let's keep that momentum going.